Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. This week we're going to unpack, well, quite a bit actually.
Yeah, this one's pretty packed.
It is. We're looking at Andrew Kagan's Random Technical News You Can Possibly Use newsletter. This one's from April 4th, 2025.
Okay, sounds good.
And so much to cover. Let's kind of think about it as our quick guide to staying on top of, well, really everything that's happening in Microsoft and tech in general.
Yeah, I mean, this newsletter always has, a great variety of news, everything from Azure to AI, security, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in. Maybe we should start with Azure, the cloud, the big one. Right off the bat, there's this Azure AI Foundry, a comprehensive guide. Have you gotten a chance to look at that yet?
I haven't dug deep into it yet, but from the title, I mean, it definitely seems like a key resource for anyone who's, looking to understand where Microsoft is going with AI on Azure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, comprehensive guide really does kind of give it away. It's like they're putting all their cards on the table with this one.
Yeah, it seems like it. And, for folks who are maybe more visual learners, there's actually quite a bit of video content this week as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's like a whole a buffet of video content. We've got Azure Update from March 28th, an Azure Masterclass. This one's focusing on VMs and VMSS.
Right.
Which, virtual machines and virtual machine scale sets. Always good to have a refresher on those.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a Logic Apps Live community call, which is always fun to listen into.
Yeah.
And then this playlist about the Gen AI Gateway in Azure API management, which, wow, that's a mouthful.
That is. It's interesting, though, right? Like, you've got the high-level update, you've got some more technical deep dives with, VMs and VMSS, and then you have this kind of community aspect with the Logic Apps call. So they're really trying to hit all these different angles and learning styles.
Yeah, it's really kind of choose your own adventure.
Right. Exactly.
Pick your poison, so to speak. And then there's this really interesting one, especially for people who are kind of setting up their Azure environments. It's infrastructure landing zone implementation decisions.
Yeah, that sounds important. I mean, the infrastructure landing zone is really the foundation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you're building a house, you got to have a good foundation.
Exactly. You don't want to skimp on that.
No. So this seems like it really digs into the nitty gritty of making sure that that foundation is solid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on from Azure, let's talk a little bit about Microsoft 365. Lots going on there. And one of the things that popped out is this video on the Microsoft Purview CLI for Microsoft 365. Now, CLI, that's command line interface for those who might not be familiar. So this is all about like the text-based commands.
Right.
So for managing data governance, I imagine this is pretty significant.
Oh, yeah. For anyone who's, managing data governance at scale, having a CLI, it's a huge help. It lets you automate things, do batch operations. It really kind of gives you that fine-grained control that you need when you're dealing with, lots of data and lots of policies.
And speaking of specific needs, there's also some news about what's new in Microsoft 365 Copilot for Government.
Yeah, which is really interesting because it shows how they're, tailoring these AI solutions for different sectors.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. It's like,
Right.
Okay, governments have their own specific needs, their own regulations, and so Copilot is evolving to kind of meet those demands.
Yeah, and we're seeing that across the board, right? Like AI isn't just this this general purpose thing anymore. It's becoming more and more specialized to different industries and use cases.
Absolutely. And then this one is just like, whoa. New reasoning agents in Copilot, researcher and analyst. So we're not just talking about like basic text generation anymore.
Yeah, this is like the next level of Copilot, right? It's not just answering your questions or, summarizing a document. It's actually able to like go out and do research, analyze information, maybe even draw conclusions.
Yeah, it's almost like having a research assistant.
Right.
Built right into your workflow.
Exactly.
Which is pretty amazing. Think about the time savings there. Being able to delegate those kinds of tasks.
Oh, yeah. It frees you up to, focus on the bigger picture, the more strategic stuff.
Absolutely. And then a couple other things in the Microsoft 365 world. There's a video on conditional access updates and best practices 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Always important to stay on top of security.
Yeah, absolutely. Conditional access is, it's one of those things it's really powerful, but it can also be a little bit complex. So having those best practices and updates is really crucial.
And then there's a Viva Engage Monday Masterclass video, which I always love those masterclasses. They're so informative.
Yeah.
And then finally, a resource on Windows 365, maximize productivity and ROI. So for those who are using those cloud desktops, seems like there's some good guidance there on how to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, Windows 365, it's a powerful tool, but like any tool, you got to know how to use it right to really get the benefit.
Absolutely. All right, so let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about the Power Platform and Dynamics 365.
Okay.
And this is another area where we're seeing this this kind of AI integration, like really front and center.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. We've got a Power BI demo copilot and AI video, and then this interesting note about being able to paste images and add files to forms with AI.
Oh, wow.
So like imagine you're filling out a form, you take a picture of something, boom, it's in the form.
Right. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean that's just using AI to make things so much smoother and more intuitive.
Yeah, and it's not just about, making things look fancy. It's actually about like real practical applications.
Exactly. And then Copilot Studio is getting some love as well. There's a What's New announcement and a video on building smarter agents.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're pushing the envelope with Copilot Studio, making it easier for people to build their own AI agents, even if they're not, hardcore coders.
Yeah, which is huge, right? Because it democratizes access to AI.
Absolutely. It takes it out of the hands of just, the elite few and makes it something that anyone can potentially leverage.
Right.
And then this new feature, Process Map Public Preview in Power Automate. So this is all about like being able to visually map out your workflows.
Oh, that's cool. I like visual tools.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm very much a visual learner, so being able to kind of see how things flow, where the bottlenecks are, that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I mean, process mapping it's such a fundamental part of, understanding and improving processes. So having that integrated directly into Power Automate is really powerful.
Absolutely. And then a couple of practical Power BI tips videos, one on agile methodologies and another on using component libraries for custom themes.
Okay.
Which, if you're all about branding and consistency, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
And then a little bonus, you can now annotate Power BI visuals in PowerPoint.
Oh, wow.
So, you're giving a presentation, you've got your data visualizations, you can just like write directly on them.
Right. That's great for adding context, highlighting key points.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're a teacher at a whiteboard. You can just circle things, underline things, make sure everyone's paying attention to the right stuff.
Yeah, that's a really nice addition.
Okay. So let's move into the world of DevOps, SRE, and infrastructure. So many things happening here. This one's kind of interesting. USB over IP devices and infrastructure.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that one before. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's like, taking the USB port and making it remote.
Right.
Which, I don't know, I'm trying to wrap my head around all the possibilities there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be really useful for, managing devices in remote locations, maybe, industrial equipment or scientific instruments, things like that.
Yeah, like the things that you don't necessarily want to have to physically go to.
Right.
But you still need to be able to connect to them.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a really interesting one to keep an eye on. And then there's this more conceptual piece for AI superpowers, where AI improves UX.
Yeah, that sounds like a good read. Understanding how AI can enhance the user experience, it's crucial no matter what you're building.
Yeah, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how people interact with it and how AI can make those interactions, more powerful, more intuitive, more enjoyable.
Exactly.
And then a couple of more specific resources. There's a WinUI web browser dev chat video, which I'm sure the developers out there will appreciate.
Yeah.
And then event-driven architecture, EDA basics.
Oh, that's a good one. EDA is becoming more and more important these days.
Yeah, especially as systems become more distributed and more complex.
Right.
So understanding how to build systems that communicate through events, that's really key. And then this interesting piece about agentic AI meets platform engineering.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's almost like, taking AI and giving it a job in managing our infrastructure.
Right, like AI becomes the platform engineer.
Exactly. Which, I mean, that could be incredibly powerful, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about all the manual tasks, the repetitive tasks that platform engineers have to do.
Yeah.
Imagine if AI could automate a lot of that.
Yeah, it would free up so much time and brain power for the humans to focus on, the really creative, the strategic stuff.
Right.
So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then finally, in this section, Hyperlight WASM, Microsoft's fast and secure runtime.
Okay.
So WASM, that's WebAssembly. And a runtime is basically the environment where your software runs.
Yeah.
So having a fast and secure runtime, that's kind of a big deal.
It is. It can have a big impact on, performance, security, even portability of applications.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a Hyperlight WASM. It could really change the game in terms of how we build and run software.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on to data analytics and AI. And it seems like Microsoft Fabric is really taking center stage here.
Yeah, Fabric is it's definitely a big focus for Microsoft.
It is. There's the introduction of the Fabric CLI preview.
Okay.
And a March 2025 Fabric feature summary. So if you're working with Fabric, you're definitely going to want to check those out.
Yeah, I mean, the CLI, it's great for automation. You can, script things, integrate Fabric into your workflows.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a Power BI tips video focusing on data contracts, which are basically agreements about how data is structured and what the quality standards are. So, making sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to data.
Yeah, data contracts they're really important, especially when you're dealing with multiple systems, multiple data sources. You got to make sure that everything is consistent and reliable.
Absolutely. And then we've got enhanced notebook integration with semantic models within Fabric.
Okay.
So this is all about, making it easier to work with data, to analyze it, to visualize it.
Right. Semantic models, they provide that kind of business-friendly layer on top of the data, so you don't have to be, a data expert to understand what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a translator for your data. So that's a really nice addition. And then this big announcement: general availability of CI/CD and REST APIs for Fabric Event Stream.
Wow, that's a big one.
It is. So CI/CD, that's continuous integration and continuous delivery. It's all about automating the process of getting your code out there, getting it deployed. And then REST APIs, those are ways for different systems to talk to each other. So basically, this means that Fabric is getting really serious about real-time data streaming.
Yeah, it's becoming a much more mature platform for dealing with, those high-volume, high-velocity data streams.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's shift gears again. Let's talk about security, compliance, and privacy.
All right.
Always an important topic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't overlook security.
No. So it looks like there's a good mix of, kind of foundational stuff and then more cutting-edge stuff. So on the foundational side, we have resources on storing secrets securely in vaults and 5 ICS cybersecurity controls. ICS, that's industrial control systems.
Right.
So this is all about, the systems that control our critical infrastructure.
Yeah, those are really important to protect. I mean, any vulnerabilities in the systems, it could have a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So, these resources are really about making sure that we're doing the basics, right? Protecting those secrets, securing those critical systems. And then on the more cutting edge side, we have new Microsoft Purview innovations for AI-ready data. So this is, recognizing that as we use more AI, we have to think about security and privacy in a new way.
Yeah, the data that feeds AI, it's a valuable asset. It needs to be protected. And then there's also the ethical considerations, making sure that AI is used responsibly.
Absolutely. And then a couple of resources on best practices. 10 vulnerability management best practices and why third-party best-of-breed cloud security is critical.
Okay.
So, it's not just about using Microsoft's tools. It's about having a layered approach to security, using the best tools for the job, even if they're from different vendors.
Yeah, I mean, security it's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
No, you gotta you gotta have the right tools and the right strategy to really protect yourself.
Right.
And then there was a unified SOC platform Q&A for security teams.
Okay.
SOC, that's Security Operations Center.
Yeah.
Those who are on the front lines of dealing with security incidents.
Yeah, they're the ones who are monitoring, detecting, and responding to threats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then finally, in the security realm, an update on Calico 3.3, new network security for Kubernetes.
Okay.
So for those using Kubernetes, which is, a very popular platform for managing containerized applications, this is all about making sure that their networks are secure.
Yeah, and network security it's critical for any Kubernetes deployment. You got to make sure that your containers can communicate securely and that you're protected from external threats.
Absolutely. Okay, so just a couple more things to cover. Let's talk about learning and certifications. Lots of great resources here. A couple that caught my eye are the Copilot Learning Hub, Agents in Microsoft 365, and GitHub Copilot, Prompt Engineering for Beginners.
Yeah, prompt engineering it's becoming a really valuable skill. You got to know how to talk to these AI tools to get the most out of them.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language.
It is.
The language of AI.
Right.
And then some beginner-friendly content. Microsoft Intune for beginners. Intune is, for managing mobile devices.
Mm-hmm.
And then a more in-depth learning path with designing and implementing Azure AI solutions, AI 102 playlist.
Okay.
So whatever your level of expertise, there's something here for you.
Yeah, it's great to see that Microsoft is providing, a range of learning resources for different levels of skill and experience.
Absolutely. And then finally, a Microsoft Fabric Workspace Setup 2025 tutorial.
Okay.
So for those just getting started with Fabric, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, a good hands-on tutorial is always helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about some broader industry news and trends.
Okay.
And one that kind of jumps out is this cloud security alerts tripled in 2024.
Wow.
So, this just underscores how important cloud security is.
Yeah, the threat landscape it's constantly evolving.
It is.
And the attackers, they're getting more sophisticated.
They are. So, we can't be complacent. We got to be proactive about security.
Right.
And then a couple of interesting developments in the AI startup world. Perplexity integrates firmly that AI commerce tech to scale, and Emergence AI builds real-time AI agents.
So we're seeing, real-world applications of AI.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just, research and development anymore. It's actually being used to solve problems and create new opportunities.
Right.
And then a little bit of a user experience change. Windows 11 blocks Microsoft account workarounds.
Okay.
So, that's going to affect how some people set up and use their Windows systems.
Yeah, it could be for security reasons, or maybe they're just trying to simplify the experience.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure without more details.
Right.
But it's something to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And then this big market projection from Gartner, Gen AI to reach 644 B in 2025.
Wow. That's huge.
It is. So that really highlights, the economic impact that generative AI is expected to have.
Yeah, it's going to be a major force in the economy.
It is. And then finally, Anthropic's Claude learning mode for education. So, AI is making its way into education as well.
Yeah, which is really exciting. I mean, there's so much potential there to personalize learning, to make it more engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Quite a journey, right?
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
We did. But hopefully, you're feeling a little bit more informed, a little bit more up to date on all the latest happenings.
Yeah, definitely. And, we encourage everyone to go out there and learn more about the things that interest them, the things that are relevant to their work.
Absolutely. And on that note, I'm curious, with all this talk about AI and the cloud and security and everything else, what do you think is going to be the most disruptive force in the next year?
That's a good question.
It is. It's something to think about. Until next week.
Until next week.